Raja. Welcome to the channel Kahanis Golden Bytes. Thank you for taking out your time, Raja. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jovi. It is a pleasure to be here. And when you ask, I can't say no. And it's wonderful to be here.
Thank you, Raja. Thank you so much. Uh, Raja, for the benefit of our viewers, I know there's such a depth of experience that you have, but for the benefit of our viewers, those who may not, who are the younger folk, so to speak, uh, for their benefit, could you just give a little bit of about your background, a little brief, Raja?
Sure,
Yeah.
Joby. It'll be my pleasure to share that. I passed out of XLRI Jamshedpur way back in 1983. And I have had added on a lot more of qualifications after that. Professional diplomas in law, training and development. More recently, executive coaching program from Center of Creative Leadership, US. I'm also a certified Hogan analyst and a qualified independent director. One thing which I love to do is to learn and keep learning as we go by, because I always believe learning never stops. So over 30 years of experience across industries. I've been in manufacturing, telecom, financial services, which is where we met, management consulting, IT-enabled service, and aviation across multiple countries: India, Middle East, ASEAN region, Southeast Asia, US, and the UK markets. I have been in HR right through and worked in organizations such as UB Group, TVS Group, Price Waterhouse, KPMG, Amex International, Spectramind, which was later taken over by Wipro, our own Quattro, and various Tata Group companies, where I had the opportunity to serve, like Tata Cellular, Tata Teleservice, both startups where I was part of the startup teams. And then I was briefly for a year in Group HR of Tata Group, which is the first time they formed a Group HR team. And later, when I got back, I was with Tata Teleservice. And then the last corporate stint I had was with Tata SAA Airlines. The advantage I have, at least the privilege I have, is to see 5 successful startups through my career between 96 and 2014, where I was involved in starting up some very successful companies. Lot of recognition through the way. I'm very proud of one recognition, which is from the National HRD Network, which is a conglomerate of all HR professionals in the country, where I got a seasoned HR professional award, and that is something very close to my heart. Presently, I run my own business in consulting and in coaching. Very actively associated with multiple employer organization, management schools, professional bodies. Presently, I'm part of the corporate advisory group of IIM Udaipur. I'm also a mentor for the entrepreneurial program in the Columbia University, US. Very passionate about startups. I've been a successful startup partner for very long. I was an angel investor in companies like Morphoy and PeopleStrong, which became really large companies. Presently, I'm on the advisory board of a few companies like Tallow City, Hono HR, ZM Foods, Oddbridge, Radical Minds. I like to help startups to grow, and that has been part of my journey.
Raja, I'm, just stunned by, just how, by the depth of experience that you just shared. I didn't know that you had so much more, because that's how you come out. You're just such a great human being that one has to scratch a lot more to figure out the depth that you have and you possess.
Joby, I think I was lucky in getting the right opportunity. So one of the things which I always tell people is when opportunities come, don't hesitate to take it up. Okay. And don't stop learning. Any of the industries I got into, I didn't have a clue of the industry. But I went in there, got to learn the industry, and then became, I would not say a master, but good enough to manage the nuances of the industry.
Amazing, Raja. Raja, this is just amazing. I won't be doing justice, I know, in the short span that I have with you. But even then, would like to just tickle some bit of information out of you, Raja. Raja, on the topic of women leaders and women leadership and women in leadership positions, um, I just thought I'll ask you a few things, Raja. Is that one
Sure,
is
sure.
one is Raja, how have you seen women in leadership positions in India evolve over the last 2-3 decades? How have what's your
You know, if I were to look at how the leadership, women in leadership has moved, some organizations have decided to focus on increasing their diversity representation numbers and have put in place programs to focus on this goal of increasing leadership positions in their organizations. Some more have decided to take on a very holistic approach, address the issues from all angles and across the employee life cycle from hire to retire. My personal opinion is that all aspects needs to be addressed through specifically tailored programs that have an impact on the entire employee life cycle. Focusing on just one aspect of saying quota in hiring or saying that I have a target to ensure that I hire so many women doesn't work. However, I should admit that this women in the leadership positions has not gone very well over the last 2.5 decades. There's been a change in the last 5-6 years, and I attribute this to absence of role models for women to look up to and get guidance of how to grow. Or this has played a very big dampener in women leaders emerging in organization. The other thing is, I think, I'm a male and I can say this. I think there's a fixed idea of what a leader is, and it is a very masculine idea of who the leader should be. And for longest, women were of organizations or organizations expected women to be very masculine leaders, very firm, task oriented, very hard, very visibly less caring, not emotional, but more rational. Don't let emotions take over and all that. And those were the role models for both women and women at one point of time. And I think to a certain extent that continues even today. So although, and the irony is that although women are hired to bring in the feminine perspective, or the expectation is that, but when they display the feminine traits, there can be quite a disadvantage for them. And that is one of the reasons why people have not seen so many women leaders. While number of women at the bottom of the ladder continues to grow, the dropout rates at the middle and the higher level seem to be, continuing because they continue to face some stereotype issues, and also what I call as the challenge of the boys network. However, I should admit that over the last 5 to 6 years, there has been a push, sometimes mandated, that there's an expectation that the board will have a representation of women or there is an affirmative action. However, I think it also works on the other side. I've spoken to a number of women leaders, and while they have liked the idea of being quote unquote diversity candidate, they hated the idea that their candidature was given an extra push because of an affirmation goal and not because of their own capabilities. So this is what I have seen over the last 2-3 decades in the industry, Jogi.
Wow, thank you so much, Raja. And Raja, since you worked in the biggest and the best Indian companies as well as multinational as well as startups, what's your uh, what's your take given your experience and given your interaction with various forums, with various association bodies, etc. Do certain type of companies treat women differently, or because to say Indian companies or MNCs or manufacturing or startups, do they have a different belief system, so to speak, or culture when it comes to women uh, in leadership position, or addressing that?
Look, I would say, I would broad base it and say certain industries rather than certain
Yeah.
companies have a different type of way of treating women.
Mm.
The new age technology and knowledge oriented businesses are better and more equal for women than the rest of the industry. Also, there are some stereotypes about some jobs across the industries. For example, customer service, HR, finance, or sometimes the support functions that are considered to be jobs for women, and so that they can treat and accommodate women in those roles. This, in my mind, can work both in favor and against. For example, engineering industries in general have been hesitating to hire women on shop floor roles. It has increased a little bit now, but not to the extent which you would like. Or, for example, when there is a sales for a mechanical type of business, industrial paints or industrial goods, where the customer base may be equivalent of blue collar workers like auto mechanics or something. I think the companies hesitate to absorb women into those roles. This may be a result because of years of bias and inaction by companies to create a culture where women receive equal opportunities as their male counterparts. This bias that I refer to is a culture where women are seen lacking certain skill sets or behaviors that the males possess, or the degree to which they possess those skills. This bias can be conscious or unconscious in all of us and is widely prevalent and demonstrated by both men and women. I think it's necessary for each one of us to be aware of that. Organizations need to be very intentional in regard to creating awareness and encouraging curiosity and courage in the workplace in order to counter this unconscious bias. If we start getting aware of this bias, half the battle is won. They need to articulate the cultural tenets and their values and hold every employee accountable in the case of conscious bias that leads to what I call as quote unquote sexism in the workplace. In my own experience of leading HR for the over 25 years across various companies, I always had more women in my team than men. I'm talking about 1994 onwards. It's not today. It's from 1994. And in most of the companies I worked in and I moved on, I can proudly say that I've been able to groom a woman successor for taking over my role when I was moving out, because I saw that they brought in a certain amount of balance to the entire workforce. When I say balance, balance in terms of decision making, balance in terms of what they bring as to the table as their own personality and traits.
Lovely, lovely, Raja. Lovely to hear that. And Raja, uh, the EU has mandated certain, positions in terms of to bring in gender diversity. The US has been resisting in terms of law, clearly so.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the VCs are now demanding in the US for startups itself. They want to see gender diversity, and they're looking for affirmative action there. Uh, in your view, Raja, mandates, do they work? Should they work? What is, I'm asking a very general question, obviously, very.
You have tickled something in me. I have a very strong opinion that mandated quotas are hugely counterproductive to organizations and also to women themselves. Mandates to grow diverse pipelines have a very high risk of causing the, say, for example, in hiring stage, the hiring manager to lower the hiring bar in an attempt to increase the, say, for example, the women representation through tokenism. In the long term, this act of lowering the skill requirements can cause a very irreparable damage on organizational effectiveness and the individual herself or himself. Besides this, quotas have an opposite effect and undermine women in the eyes of the colleagues after they actually enter the workplace. Such a push also generated anxiety, cynicism, and fear among men in the organization. There are multiple bodies of research, Joby, which shows that women themselves are not supportive of a mandated quota. You know, uh, I think that having a very affirmative action or mandated roles or a quota needs to come along with a multi-pronged approach of building sensitivity and awareness about gender differences and about different orientations in the workplace. The way I will look at it is, what are the leadership competencies, are against which you are in measuring the women before you hire them or before you move them or promoting them. Look at the leadership competencies. Don't keep changing it for just because there's a women leader. So you would have, that you would have understood from what I'm saying
Yes,
that I'm
yes,
a very anti-quota person
sure,
for
sure.
anything.
Yeah.
Having said that, all things being equal, and if one has a choice of a man or a woman for a leadership role, I will take a woman for the value and balanced thought process she brings to the team. And that's how I will view not a quota based, but more a merit based on what you see that the person is bringing to the table.
Lovely, Raja. Thank you for sharing that. And Raja, uh, I want to, touch upon this, the subject of, say, the higher education, so to speak. The IIMs have seen a less than 20% applicants being women. Okay. Now that's applicants. Uh, Due to the current situation of COVID, we've seen, a drop in the women workforce, uh, due to the stereotyping, etc., etc. Various reasons for that. Do you see in the coming future some of these numbers turning positively, or from the gender perspective? Would that see a change for the better, Raja?
Uh, Joby, I think one of the first things which I would, dissuade you from saying is that looking at IIMs and taking that
Mhm.
as a benchmark.
Okay.
First of all, looking at the intake and saying women enroll less in is does not reflect whether there will be more women in the top management in the future or not. I'll tell you why. I have visited many management schools across the spectrum, tier one, tier two, or tier three also over the years.
Mhm.
And I'm very stunned to see over almost a 50-50 ratio of men and women in most of the schools. Okay. In fact, more
Wow.
women than men in some schools.
Amazing.
And they also grow to be managers. I have seen many successful managers through my career who are not necessarily from IIMs alone.
Mhm.
So to that extent, to see that as a benchmark, I'm not very comfortable. But however, having said that, a lot of people are, this year has been a different year, as you are aware.
Yeah.
There has been a lot of hesitation in people looking at higher studies because they believe that going to a management school, the experience is now different than sitting at home and doing the same course in a management school. I have a lot of people who have approached me and said, "Is it a good thing to, study from home rather than go and mix
Mhm.
with people there? So maybe they can skip a year and go next year."
Mhm.
And I believe that in management schools, it's best to be in person and create that atmosphere of learning because you mix across with people and get to learn a lot. So that is one part as far as the education is concerned. You also say that COVID has seen a lot of women drop off the workforce. I was a little surprised with what I heard because I personally know many large companies using work from home model to increase their gender diversity, which they have not been able to do for many years now.
Yes.
Because this model enables women to be able to work from anywhere. And that's there. I know some HR guys who jokingly said we are able to meet our targets of women in the team because of work from home.
Lovely, lovely,
Um,
lovely.
the, the other thing is with the growing consumer market, many of the families who want to have a double income
Mhm.
will force people to say that women getting support at home
Mhm.
to spread their wings. And
Right.
work from home has created a great respect and appreciation for the women in the workforce,
Oh,
and
yes.
the men have started pitching in more. And this is here to stay. And this will enable an increase of women in the workforce
Lovely,
as we go by. And that's
lovely,
how I see it.
lovely. Raja, for your views. And I don't want to take any more time because you're hard pressed for time. For your views, Raja, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'd love to have you on the channel some other time. Uh, Once again, thank you so much for coming on the channel, Raja.
It was a pleasure. It was pleasure, Joby, because nurturing of women leaders. I have personally done that, and it's a great opportunity for me to share what has been successful for me in building such leadership across. And you gave me that opportunity. Thank you for that. Thank you so
Oh,
much for that.
thank you, Raja, once again. Thank you.